Up next is John Robinson. He says, what are your thoughts on Luis Robert? He's having a terrific season on a bad White Sox team, but there seems to be a little buzz in his cards. I got a BGS 9.5 Refractor Auto out of $499 from 2018 Bowman for $500 at the National. 1/3 of the price where his cards were a year ago. Yep, he's only 26 and he's on pace for 40 or more homers and a chance at 20 or more stolen bases. Is his lack of interest due to being on the White Sox, too many burned by his 2020 items, a combination of both, or something else? Or is it appropriately priced? This is a way to frame this up, John. That's a perfect way to frame it up. Love it. Chad, what do you think?
Good morning, John, and thanks for the question. This is a really good question, and to be honest with you, I'm going to be curious to see how Lefty responds to this question. I want to hear his take on it, but here's my take. Luis Robert is having a great season. I think that so many people, he was one of the biggest chases when his rookie card came out, and then injuries plagued him, and he just could not get healthy, and people lost a ton of money on Robert early in his career, the first couple, 2-3 years. So I think there is a sense of burnout with the hobby. I do think that myself included, I lost quite a bit of money on Robert in the very early years. I've since made some money on him, but I've got a little bit of burnout, if I'm being honest. I haven't really looked at his cards too much, just simply because of the major downward trajectory that he had from when he first came out through the injuries. Now, he is having a great year. It is a bounce-back year. I think a lot of collectors like myself want to see if he can do it a couple of years in a row or if this is an anomaly. He certainly is a talented player and has all the tools to be a 30-30 or a 40-30 type player, and that's rare in the hobby. I do think him playing on the White Sox has also hurt his values, as the White Sox are terrible this year. So that does play a little bit of effect on his cards. However, it hasn't affected a guy like Mike Trout, who's played on a terrible Angels team. Now, I get Trout and Robert aren't of the same caliber, but baseball is an individual sport in terms of baseball cards. Values of cards are not necessarily due to how the team is doing. However, it can help. And in this particular case, I think the White Sox are hurting his value a little bit, as well as a little bit of burnout from the hobby. It's actually not a bad play right now, as I think that if he finishes this year strong and starts out strong again next year, you probably will see more people turning back to start collecting his cards, and you could see his values rise. But as of his current values, I think his current values are where they should be. However, I think that there is upside if he continues to produce without getting injured. Hope this answers your questions, and thanks. Keep them coming.
All right, Lefty, what do you have to say about Lou Bob?
Hey, John, great job thinking on little Lou Bob, little Luis Robert or Luis Robert cards here. I think he's made me eat crow a little bit, because I believe I was pretty harsh on him in the offseason, where I just thought that Luis Robert was done. And I thought that his cards were just extremely overvalued at one point, and they would never get back to that. What I think we've seen this year is a resurgence of the Luis Robert that we thought could be. We thought he could be one of the top 10 players in baseball, and he showed some reliance on that tendency and on that talent this year. So if you bought in at 1/3 of his value at one point, I think you're going to get back to that. The problem is this White Sox team is horrendous. The White Sox, just around the whole idea of the White Sox franchise right now, you've got the Tim Anderson stuff. You've got the other things that are going on. You've got this scandal where they can't really find a good coach and they can't figure out what they're doing. Their farm system is all whack and wound. Weird. They did get good pieces back at the deadline, but you have players that have just left their program talking about the environment of the clubhouse, and and how Yasmani Grandal wanted to leave early from the All-Star break. And then Tim Anderson said, F you, I'm going to buy you a flight home if you don't like that. And then Yasmani went across the locker room and just slapped him. There's players that are falling asleep in the dugout, all this stuff. People regularly and routinely taking naps in the bullpen. It's just like this club is not set for a disciplined player. They're not set for stardom. And for a guy like Luis Robert to be playing so well on that team, I believe his value is getting dinged from his past 2 years of falling and people thinking that this isn't this is maybe an outlier and he might regress back next year. But at the same time, there's so many bad things about this about the media that's going on with this White Sox team. It's going to take a lot for his value to eventually rise. So I do think it eventually rises, which is where I'm getting at this. But I think it's going to take him proving it over an extended period of time, not just this year. So I believe probably next year, if he's not on the White Sox anymore, Lou Bob's value will go up, whether he gets traded, whether he moves to another team, or whether he improves in the White Sox organization, and the White Sox organization in themselves improve. So thanks, John. Love the question, and feel free to submit some more.
All right. Phenomenal analysis on Luis Robert there. Luis Robert, however you want to say his name. However, I'm going to say this. There's so many different ways to spend money to try to make money flipping sports cards. You have to buy in, and you have to know when you buy in what the marker is going to be for you to get out. And that includes all sports. Now, baseball is the sport that has the surefire marker. The surefire marker is the call up from being one of the top rated prospects to making your major league debut. That is when all the hype happens. That is when everyone is wanting to buy that person's card. That is when the premium members and the listeners to the Sports Card Strategy Show and nooffseason.com have the opportunity to make money. That is where we can outsmart everybody else. So why would you buy a major leaguer? Like, why would you buy any major leaguer unless they're named Shohei Ohtani, maybe Aaron Judge? I just don't, but I wouldn't even recommend buying any major leaguer unless maybe Shohei Ohtani. I just, I just don't know. Like, I think it's a great question by John. And I think, if you're tunnel vision on baseball and you really want to try to nail an opportunity to flip a major leaguer, I just don't get it. I wouldn't ever buy a major leaguer. The markers are gone. The only markers are now breaking a home run record, going on some amazing tear of like a huge hitting streak, being an integral part maybe of breaking a significant team MLB record, and basically winning a World Series. I mean, you're either going to win the Triple Crown, break a home run record of some sort, or win the World Series. Like, those are the only markers that will even sniff what a call up gives us in profit. So that's my rant on, like, why are we even talking about Luis Robert? Like, why are we even talking about him? I don't get why we would talk about him. I mean, I get why someone would have a question about him. Like, absolutely. Have a question about him. Great question. Great answers in a vacuum on Luis Robert. But in the macro sports card flipping strategy, like, why are we considering a guy who is on a bad team, who does not have a proven track record, who's far past his call up, who's already lost a bunch of people money? He's just not going to have the market size that a Jackson Holiday or a Jackson Chourio, like, put all the money that you would even consider putting into Luis Robert into Jackson Holiday and Jackson Chourio right now. And then about 6 months from now, well, probably more like 8 to 9 months from now, you will have profit from your Jackson Holiday and Jackson Chourio flips to buy whatever PC cards you want. And if you want a PC Luis Robert, be my guest. But is he going to make you money flipping? No. Yo, thanks so much for checking out this clip. It was from the Overflow Show, where we answer unlimited questions from our premium members to help them build their sports card investment portfolio. You can become a premium member now. Just go to nooffseason.com and join a free 30-day trial of our premium membership and have your questions answered on the Overflow Show every Friday.